I turned onto Birch Lake Road at 7:10 on the 14th of January. Corinne Baki had said something to me in the coffee line at Zion the Sunday before, and I had not slept right since. Corinne runs the early pickup lane at the elementary. She said it the way people mention weather. Bernice, I haven't had Ingrid in my line since before Christmas. It's been Grant every day. I only say it because she used to be the one that waved. I lay awake most of that week doing the thing I did for 38 years, which is take a set of facts I do not like and turn them over until they hold still. It was 11 below. The porch light was burning in full daylight. The driveway had 3 storms on it and not one track through it. The near stall of the garage was scraped down to bare, dry concrete, with tire marks running out to the road. And the snow shovel stood right where I left it in November, blade buried, drifted in past the handle. Then the inside door opened. My daughter stood behind the storm glass in her winter coat, indoors at 7 in the morning, and did not open it. Welcome back to Thistlebank Stories, where the overlooked finally get back what's theirs. If this is your first story with me, subscribe and tell me in the comments what town this one is finding you in. Now let me back up because that morning was the end of it and not start. My name is Bernice Haugen. I'm 66. For 38 years I was a nurse at Sorensen County Memorial in Nyberg, Minnesota, and for 22 of those I was head nurse on nights. Nights is a different job. On nights I learned that a chart tells the truth about a person long before the person does. A patient can smile and answer every question right. Then I look at the sheet and see nothing recorded since 3 in the morning. That is the one I go check. I married Arne Haugen in 1981. He drove a gravel truck for the county. He died 6 years ago in March, and his ice fishing thermos is still in my back porch closet, with a dent in it he never explained. I have a county pension and what is left of Arnie's savings, and the house is paid for. I am not a rich woman. I am a woman who has never once been surprised by a bank statement. We had one. Ingrid is 38. She does intake at the dental clinic out on County Road 8, and she has her father's laugh, and no idea she has it. Ingrid married Grant Sword 11 years ago at Zion. Grant sells ag equipment for a dealership up in Brainerd, so he is on the road a good deal. He is the most likable man in any room he walks into. I want that on the record because it matters later. He remembers what a person's knees are doing. He carries the groceries in without being asked. Everybody at that church liked Grant better than they liked me, and I did not blame one of them for it. Elsie is 7, Otto is 4. For 30 years I have done Sunday dinner. My mother did it, and I do it. There is a chest freezer in my garage that exists for one reason, which is so nobody leaves my house on a Sunday without something in a container. And 2 Christmases ago, I bought them a doorbell camera. Grant is not handy. That is not an insult, he would say so himself. So, on the 27th of December, I got up on a step stool and put it up myself. I made the account on my own phone. Then I added Ingrid, and I sat at her kitchen table and showed her how to pull it up. We laughed about it. She kept setting it off by leaning in to check her lipstick. I never took my own phone off that account. It did not occur to me. It was 2 Christmases ago, and we were close then. That was the last Christmas I was inside that house. The first one was in March, and it looked like a car repair. Ingrid's Corolla started making a noise on the way to work. Grant said it was the timing belt and that he would get to it. He is the sort of man who says he will get to a thing, and he says it so pleasantly that bringing it up a second time feels unreasonable. He did not get to it. That car sat in the far stall of the garage. The tabs went out of date in June. By July, there was snowblower gas in front of the driver's door, and by then, she was riding to the clinic with him every morning and getting picked up at 4:40. I said something about it exactly once in April in my own kitchen with a dish towel in my hand. I could run her and Grant. I'm 10 minutes away. That's kind of you, Bernice, Grant said. We've got a rhythm. I said I would pay for the belt. I had the money and I said so, which for a Norwegian woman in Sorensen County is nearly indecent. Grant smiled at me and said he could not let me do that. And here is the thing about all of it. That is a reasonable sentence. Every last one of them was a reasonable sentence said kindly by a man loading my dishwasher. There was never a single place where a person could plant her feet and say that right there is wrong. That is how a year and a half goes by. The second one took the whole summer, and it came apart one person at a time. In June, Ingrid missed a Sunday because Otto had a fever. That happens. In July, she missed 2 and Grant brought both children himself, and he was wonderful. He carried the crock out to the car. He sat on my floor and let Otto climb him. Corinne asked me at church that week how Ingrid was doing, and I said busy because that is what I had been told. In August, he brought only Elsie. In September, nobody came at all, and at 4 in the afternoon, I got a text from Ingrid's phone that said, "Sorry, Mom, crazy week, love you," with no punctuation in it anywhere. My daughter punctuates. She has punctuated since she was 9 years old. She is the only person under 50 I know who puts a period at the end of a text message. I read that one about 6 times, and then I put the phone down and told myself I was being a foolish old woman. I want to be honest about what I did with that whole summer because it was nothing. I cooked anyway. Every Sunday the same as 30 years. And when nobody came, I put it in containers and carried it out to the chest freezer in the garage. By Labor Day, that freezer was so full I had to stand on a bucket to get the lid down. Twice I drove food over myself. Both times Grant met me on the step and took the dish out of my hands and thanked me, and both times the door stayed about 8 inches open behind him. The second time I asked whether Ingrid was home. "She's laying down," Grant said. "I'll tell her you came by." And when he took the dish out of my hands, I could see past his arm to the counter behind him. There was a stack of mail on it, 4 or 5 inches deep, still in the envelopes, the window kind on top. The ones that come from banks. I remember thinking my daughter must have gotten behind on the filing. Ingrid has never been behind on the filing in her life. She alphabetized her own school papers at 11 years old. Then in August, I was sitting in the second pew at Zion, and my phone buzzed against my hip in the middle of the offertory. Motion detected front door. I put my hand over it and turned it face down on the pew, and I was ashamed of myself for the rest of the service. I had not been in that house in 8 months. My phone was still pinging me every time somebody walked up to a door I was not welcome at anymore. It felt like standing outside a window in the dark. I meant to take myself off that account that week. I did not, and I could not have said why. The third one was in October, and it was Elsie. Her birthday is the 19th. I asked about it in September, and Ingrid said they were doing something small. Then it was going to be the 26th instead, on account of a show Grant had in Sioux Falls. Then it was going to be the weekend after that. Then it was nothing at all. I called on the 2nd of November, and Ingrid answered her own phone, which by then was rare enough that I sat down. Her voice was perfectly pleasant and completely flat, like a woman reading off a card, and she said they had done cupcakes at home and it had been real nice. I asked whether I could bring Elsie's present by. There was a pause, and then Ingrid said, "Grant likes to know ahead. He likes to know when everybody's coming and going." I said, "Of course." I drove out on a Saturday in November with a wrapped box on the passenger seat, and I did not go up the walk. I sat at the end of Birch Lake Road with the engine running, like a woman casing her own daughter's house. After about 10 minutes, I turned around, drove home, and put that box in the hall closet, where it stayed until March. And that night I did the thing I have not told many people about. I sat at my own kitchen table at 9 o'clock and opened the camera app on my phone. Not to spy on anybody. I told myself I only wanted to know whether they were home. The porch light came on, and I watched 14 seconds of an empty step and some blowing snow. Then I closed it and put the phone face down and sat there in my coat. 65 years old, watching a front door on a telephone to find out whether my own child was alive. I did not know it yet, but I had just looked straight at the answer and not seen it. The fourth one was December, and it was telephone. I called on the 8th. Grant answered Ingrid's phone. "She's in the shower, Bernice. I'll have her call you." I called on the 14th. Grant answered Ingrid's phone. "She's laying down. It's been a week." I called on the 22nd about Christmas. Grant answered Ingrid's phone. I could hear Otto behind him and a television going, and I asked to speak to my daughter, and there was a pause, about a second and a half long. "She'll call you when she's ready," Grant said. Not unkindly. That is the part I need you to have. There was no edge on it at all. He had a receptionist's voice for it. "The doctor is with a patient, ma'am." I said all right, and I hung up and I stood in my kitchen with my hand still on the phone. On one of those calls, I asked how they were fixed for money because the dealership had cut Grant's territory in half that fall, and everybody at Zion knew it. Grant said they were in good shape. He said it easily, the way he said all of it. I called once more on Christmas Eve, and it rang out, and nobody picked up, and I made the rolls anyway out of habit and gave most of them to Corinne Baki. Then Corinne said what she said in the coffee line. I did not sleep right for a week. And on the 14th of January, I drove out to Birch Lake Road at 7:10 and saw a driveway with 3 storms on it. That is the whole way down. It took 18 months, and there was not one moment in it anybody could point at. I went back on the Sunday with a hot dish. That is what we do up here. If a thing cannot be said, you take a pan. I made the one Ingrid liked in high school, tater tots and all. I put it in the good dish with the lid that clips. I taped the reheating inside the lid the way I have done for 11 years. Then I drove out at 4:30 so it would still be hot. Grant opened the door before I was up the steps. He was in his stocking feet with a dish towel over his shoulder, and he looked genuinely glad to see me. "Bernice, you didn't have to do that." I said I knew I did not have to. I could see past him. The television was on with the sound low, and Otto was on the floor in front of it. And Ingrid was standing at the kitchen counter about 8 feet behind her husband with a coffee cup in both hands, looking at me. She was in a cardigan, and she had lost weight in her face. That is not something I am guessing at. I spent 38 years looking at faces for a living. The first place it shows is under the eyes and along the jaw. Ingrid had gone from a woman who looked tired to a woman who looked spent, and those are 2 different charts. I said, "Ing, come get a plate with me. 20 minutes. Grant turned his head a little, not all the way around. "She's laying down in a bit," he said. "She'll call you when she's ready." His wife was standing 8 feet behind him holding a coffee cup. She did not say anything. She lifted the cup about an inch, which I believe was meant to be a wave, and then she looked at the floor. Then Grant said the other thing gently, with his hand on the doorframe. "She's just not close with you the way she used to be. That happens, Bernice. It isn't anybody's fault." I have thought a great deal about what a different woman would have done on that step. Pushed past him. Made a scene on a front porch in front of 2 small children with the neighbor's lights coming on down the road. I did not, and I want to be plain that it was not dignity. It was 38 years of triage. A person does not get but one shot at a thing like that, and I was not going to spend mine on a doorway. So I said, "The reheating's inside the lid." I gave in the dish, and I went back to my car. Elsie came out after me in her socks, down 2 steps of a cold porch, the way children do when nobody is watching the door. She had something to tell me, and it was very important. It was about a girl at school named Paisley and a situation with a coat hook. Then she stopped in the middle of it and said, "Grandma, are you mad at us?" I said, "No, sweetheart, never." And Elsie said, "Then how come Mom can't have her phone at night?" Her father called her in from the doorway, and she went and the storm door shut. I sat in that car in front of the house for a minute with my hands on the wheel. Then I got a pen out of the console and wrote on the back of a quick trip receipt the date, the time, which was 4:52, and the words a 7-year-old had said to me on a cold step in her socks. That is not a strange thing to do. It is the first thing they teach you and the last thing you forget. If a thing is worth noticing, it goes on the chart with a time on it because 6 weeks later, nobody remembers and the paper does. I drove the 11 minutes home. I did not cry about it. I came in my own back door and stood in my kitchen with my coat still on, and I got out my phone and opened that camera app. And this time I did not look at the picture. I went into the history. There is a screen on that thing that lists every event it ever recorded. Date, time, what set it off. It goes back as far as the account does. Mine went back 2 years and 18 days. I sat down at 9 o'clock at night with a legal pad, and I did what I did for 38 years, which is put numbers in a column until they say something. I counted departures. Not everything the mail carrier and the wind set it off to. I counted the front door opening with a person going out to the driveway a month at a time, working backwards. 2 Januaries ago, 41. That is a woman with a job, 2 children, and a mother 11 minutes away. The March the Corolla quit, 34. June 22. September 12. November 5. December 3. And in the 22 days of January I had on that screen 1. The 14th at 7:12 in the morning. That was the inside door opening while I sat in my car at the end of the driveway, and it closed again 40 seconds later. Underneath all of it, every single day, morning and evening, a second set of events. Somebody going out and coming back, every day, never missing one. I want to tell you what that page looked like because I had seen it before. Not from a doorbell. On a chart at 3 in the morning in a room where the numbers get further apart until somebody has to go in and check. I stopped at 2 in the morning with 11 pages. The next afternoon, I took them to Fern Okerlund, who was charge nurse under me for 9 years and has known Ingrid since the car seat. She read all 11 pages at my kitchen table without a word, twice. Then Fern said, "This is a chart, Bernice. It isn't a rescue." I said I knew that. "No, you don't," Fern said, "because I know what comes next. You take it out there and put it in hand. Then the account gets closed, and the locks get changed, and you are the last number she can dial." I did not sleep on that either. On the Wednesday, I drove to the clinic on County Road 8 at 4 o'clock and waited in the lot because it was the one place in Sorensen County that man was not. Ingrid came out at 4:35, saw my car, and her whole face did something before she got it back. I got out. I did not bring the pages. I said, "I'm not here to fight. I want you to know something. My house is open at any hour for any reason, and I will not ask one question." And my daughter said, "Mom, stop." She said it fast. She said Grant was under pressure with the territory. She said he was good with the kids. She said the car was her own fault for putting the belt off. She said the thing they all say, which is that I did not know what it was like and that carrying on this way was going to make it worse. Then she said the sentence I still hear, "Please don't take this away from me too." And she got into his truck because he was already pulling into the lot, and he waved at me across 2 rows of cars with his whole arm, friendly as anything. That is the day I lost. Not the porch, that one. Rhonda Pilcher runs the family advocacy office out of the county building. I sat in her little room on a Thursday and put the 11 pages on her desk because I did not know what else to do with them. Rhonda did not look impressed, and she did not look surprised, which was its own kind of information. "You can't take her out," Rhonda said. "That isn't a thing that works. What can be done is make sure the door is unlocked and she knows it. Then go home and be exactly where you said you'd be." I asked how long that takes. Rhonda said sometimes years. She said the average woman goes back 7 times, and she said it the way I used to give a diagnosis with no decoration on it at all. Fern came over on the Sunday with her reading glasses. Neither one of us had ever filed a fraud claim, so we read the instructions out loud to each other, like 2 women assembling a bicycle. 3 forms, 1 for each account. I put them in a folder and told myself I was being ridiculous. So that is what I did. I wrote it on an index card in pen in block letters because block letters are what I trust. Any hour, any reason, no questions. And I taped it inside the lid of that dish underneath the reheating instructions. A man carrying a pan in from a car has no reason to look there. The woman who washes it up has no way to miss it. Then I cooked on Sunday the way I had for 30 years, and I waited 11 days. My phone rang at 6:40 on a Tuesday morning in February. "Mom," Ingrid said, "can you meet me at the credit union at 9? Not a question. She had decided it before she dialed, and that is the only reason any of the rest of it happened. Here is what I learned in the 12 minutes we had in that parking lot. I am going to give it to you the way she gave it to me, which was flat and fast with both hands on the wheel. There were 3 credit cards. She had never applied for one of them. She found the first statement in October. Grant said it was a mix-up with a store account and that he would handle it, and she believed him because believing him was the whole arrangement by then. Then a second one came. Then a third. Across the 3 of them, the balance was $27,480, and that morning at the kitchen table, Grant had told her they were going to the credit union at 9 to consolidate. One loan in her name at a rate he had already talked to somebody about. It would clear all 3 accounts, and there would be a single payment, and she would not have to think about any of it again. I asked her what made her say no. Ingrid said the appointment was at 9, and she was sitting in the truck at 10:02. She looked at the front door of her own house, and she could not remember the last time she had walked out of it by herself. Then she said, "There's a card in my dish drainer, Mom. I've had it in my pocket 11 days. Lakeshore Community Credit Union is 1 room with 3 desks, 4 chairs in the lobby, and a coffee urn. Priya Raman had the 9 o'clock. There were 2 other members waiting, a young man at the teller window and a woman sitting for a notary. I had the 11 pages in a folder. Fern had helped me fill out fraud affidavits the week before, on the off chance, and I want to say plainly that I had no idea whether any of it was worth the paper. I am a nurse. I was guessing. Grant came in at 9:04 with 2 coffees from the Quick Trip. He was pleasant to Priya. He was pleasant to the young man at the window. He set a coffee down in front of his wife and sat, and he saw me in the 4th chair, and his face did not change at all. "Bernice," Grant said, "you didn't have to come out in this." Priya Raman turned her screen and started to read the terms of the loan. And Ingrid said, "I'm not signing it." Priya stopped. Grant did not get angry. I want to be accurate about that because I have gone over it 100 times. He did not raise his voice 1 time in that building. He put his hand flat on the desk and turned to me, not to his wife, to me. And he said it the way he had been saying it since June. "She'll call you when she's ready." And my daughter said, "I'm right here." 3 words in a room with 6 people in it. That is the whole of it. That is the sentence 18 months of my life was made out of. And it did not come apart because I walked in with 11 pages in a folder. It came apart because the person it was about was sitting 4 feet away and said so out loud. What happened after took 11 weeks, and I will give it in order. Priya Raman stopped the appointment. She could not discuss another member's accounts with me. But she could tell Ingrid that a disputed transaction form existed and where to sit down and fill one out. Ingrid filled out all 3 at the end desk that morning, while Grant stood in the lobby and then went out to the parking lot and then drove off. Officer Marta Espinoza took the report that afternoon at the county building. 2 of the 3 accounts had been opened online in Ingrid's name, with her social security number and Grant's cell phone as the contact. In Minnesota, that is identity theft. Over $500, it is a felony, and the county attorney charged it. The $27,480 came off her across about 4 months, 1 issuer at a time. Every account took its own claim, its own statement history, and its own phone call, and there was paperwork every single week of it. The last card cleared in June. Halvor Stain handled the order for protection. The court granted it, and it covered the house on Birch Lake Road, and Ingrid stayed in it with the children. Grant did not. Temporary custody went to Ingrid in March. There will be a property settlement eventually, and Halvor says it will be dull, and dull is the nicest word anybody has said to me all year. And here is the last part, which I did not see coming at all. When Halvor asked for the camera records, they came back with a viewing history attached. Every account on it, and every time somebody opened the app. Grant never took me off that account because he was on it himself. He checked it. Not once or twice, most days twice a day, from the road, from a dealership lot in Brainerd, from a motel outside Sioux Falls. He was reading the same column I was. He knew exactly how many times his wife left that house in November. He had that number before I did. I gave them a camera for Christmas because I wanted to see the children on the step. He kept it up on that wall for 2 years because it told him where she was. And not one of us ever thought to ask who else was watching. It is April now. The Corolla is fixed. It cost $410, and a man named Denny out on the county road did it in an afternoon, and there was never one thing wrong with the timing belt. Ingrid comes on Sundays. Some weeks she does not talk much, and I have learned to let a room be quiet. Elsie has decided she is in charge of the chest freezer. She goes out to the garage before dinner and comes back in with a container and announces what it is. Half the time it is from a Sunday nobody came to. We are eating our way backwards through the worst year of my life, and my granddaughter thinks it is a treasure hunt. That freezer is about a third empty. It has not been a third empty in 2 years. I am not going to stand here and call this a rescue. I did not rescue my daughter. She got herself out of a truck in a parking lot with an index card in her pocket. The most useful thing I ever did was be exactly where I said I would be for 11 days running. What I will say is this. I had that column of numbers on my telephone for 1.5 years and never once opened it, and I have made my peace with that mostly. Nobody is ever going to hand you the sheet and say, go check. It just gets further apart, morning and evening, quieter and quieter, until somebody who knows what she is looking at finally sits down with it. That is the whole chart. There is nothing left in the margins.